That is such an interesting interpretation, isn't it? So even if it's legal, it has to go. So like political dissent, is that up for debate or not? Is political dissent hate speech? Interesting, isn't it? So Nigel Farage, was he doing hate speech? I mean, according to some publication, I remember he may have. The banks considered that he may have. What the banks did to Nigel Farage, though, is that hate speech? Probably not, but it's very interesting. So after Brexit happened, we need a lot more control over what the peasants get to talk with each other. Because if a peasant talks to another peasant and the government doesn't know, that is dangerous. And listen to this.
Risk assessments into illegal content and harmful content. They also have to provide summaries publicly so that everybody knows, again, what they're saying, so that they can no longer be a closed shop. They can no longer be these nameless, faceless executives in Silicon Valley.
What's interesting is that during the pandemic, the government in Britain actually did have a censorship committee that wasn't acting publicly. And this was a little bit of an outrage. But basically, they would censor whoever they wanted. They would demand that certain news was suppressed. And this wasn't done with public debate. No one knew about it. And I remember, like, the scandal actually was that the Labour wasn't happy with the Conservatives because they believed falsely that this commission was going to be dismantled. And in reality, the Conservatives didn't want to dismantle it, right? So that was the controversy. It wasn't that it existed. But apparently, like, hiding stuff from the public, doing things behind people's back, like, that's fine as long as the government does it. It's just not people from Silicon Valley that does it, and especially not you, right? This bill, apparently, is going to end encryption. Because as you can see, the most controversial of the proposal would force platforms like WhatsApp and Signal to undermine messaging encryption. So private chats could be checked for criminal content, right? Because you are suspicious. You don't need a court order anymore. It's not like a judge needs to come up and, have like some actual reasoning to look into your private matter. No, like the simple fact that you exist and you're online, you're suspicious to the government. Like they suspect you of stuff. So obviously they have to go through your private messages. Now, we do have the technology for people to go through your private messages because up until now, it wasn't possible. Like the government simply didn't have the manpower to go through everyone's correspondence. But it's great that now we have artificial intelligence, which can go through everyone's correspondence. And I wouldn't be surprised if in the future they will actually, technically with your permission, because you sign a TOS when you go online. But if privacy doesn't exist and the social media companies can't have privacy even if they would want to, because it would violate this online safety bill, then why wouldn't they use your messages to train future AIs? Like even if you're not doing anything wrong, even if you're just minding your own business, your data can still be collected and used in order for AI. Now people will say, but what about the GDPR, which is the European Union is guarantee that the ones storing your data don't store private information without your consent. Well, first of all, if it doesn't save your name and if it doesn't have like any identifiers, then it's fine to be collected. But secondly, this is in the UK, so it doesn't apply.
That are making decisions about your children.
And so like people that are making decisions about your children. Last time I checked, a lot of parents in the UK were upset about schools teaching LGBT issues. Are they also, empowering the parents in that situation? Again, like this is not America, so I don't think like in the UK you have like the drag kids story hour thing that caused the controversy. But like my point is like, will you have like the same moral framework when it comes to other issues? And the answer is no, of course. And the reason for it is that they do not care about the children. This is a draconic legislation that is designed to destroy any sort of privacy online. Is designed to destroy encryption. The governments have been trying to do this for years now. And it's going to be used in order to crack down on political dissent. Now, how do you give this to the public, right? Because no one would accept to this, and there's two ways to give it to the public. You either wrap it up in we're fighting terrorism, or you wrap it up in it's to protect the kids package. Now, what's interesting is that a similar legislation is coming from the European Union, and it's also to protect the children and whatnot. And it has protect kids against grooming, right? Now the interesting thing is that when you talk about other illegal stuff like child pornography, right? Like that is a lot more easier to track because they have machines and they have ways that they can recognize the pictures. So that doesn't really require a massive invasion in the privacy of a person. Certainly doesn't require to like monitor what a person is saying. But in the European Union's bill, what they do is like they're going against grooming. So grooming is an act which is a lot more difficult for a person to know whether or not it happens unless like they actually read and they try to understand the context of the private messages. So in other words, if I read the bill correctly, anyone can read your private messages. And they can also use them in order to train AI, as we talked before. So basically, even if you don't do anything bad and you never talk to any children online and you write, they can still go through your messages and they can say, well, yeah, but like we're collecting the data in order to train the AI to know what a person who doesn't groom looks like. So in other words, right, like you can have your data taken away in order to teach the AI how like a normal person functions. But in reality, it just makes more of a Chinese surveillance type of thing. Like I remember back in 2016, everything about this would be considered a Chinese style state. And when we looked at China, we would look with horror because it would be like, well, that's not a democratic system. That's not a country that promotes liberty. That's not a country that promotes European values. Like I remember people were saying this. The idea of censorship on the internet was abhorrent. Like what do you mean? Like we're censoring content that's legal but harmful? Like what the fuck is that? Right? So, like Count Dankula, like training his dog to do the right. This is the country that's now going to be in place of deciding what is legal but harmful. Or I remember there was a girl in the UK which had a friend that passed away. So she wrote some rap lyrics because it was his favorite song. She got in trouble with the cops. Like this is the country that we're talking about that's, making this legislation, which obviously is most likely going to affect the entire world, not just the UK, because these social media companies, like once they put the systems in place for one country and then the European Union asks for it, like they're just going to expand. I don't think like they're going to have like several different systems like for EU, for Britain, for Australia, for Germany, they're probably going to be like which country is the most restrictive and have something similar to that to the rest of the world. But it is very concerning. And the most concerning thing is that people themselves like this. Like people are being convinced that no, actually this is for your own children. This is to fight terrorism, right? In reality, what's good for someone's children is parenting. Like children shouldn't be online to begin with, especially not until the age of 14. If you look at most social media giants, they don't let their children on the internet anyway. And secondly, as a parent, you're the one that should supervise the kids. Like I grew up, and many of us grew up, in an internet that was very harmful and dangerous. And yet, look, we're pillars of the fucking community, chat. Like we are model citizens, right? There is no reason why the government should do this. The idea that two people can talk with each other without the government knows scares the living shit out of them. So in other words, the telephone, chat, the telephone, the telegraph, the postal office probably terrifies these people and gives them nightmares. Because when my parents were younger, these things existed. And it was very difficult. Like sure, like I lived under the Iron Curtain, so certain people were monitored. But it was very difficult for the government to actually listen in to what a person talks on their private phone call. Now this needs to become the norm because people use WhatsApp instead of phone messaging. It's interesting because in many cases the government isn't allowed to check the phone messaging, but they want to be able to check WhatsApp. Which is obvious like what's going to happen, right? Like the people who are criminals and want to do bad stuff are not going to use these programs. They're probably going to use either something more fringe or use like the phone messaging system, or just meet in person or use the mailbox if they're committing crimes. And the people who are going to be monitored are just going to be the average citizens like you and I. We're going to have more of our data collected by these companies. And of course, the government needs to know everything there is about you, but we don't get to know everything there is to know about the government or our politicians. Brilliant, right? Let me know what you guys think, though, and don't forget to check the pinned comment. See you in the comment section. Take care.